servant, and teach me your laws. Alleluia, alleluia, alleluia.
The Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Luke. Great crowds were traveling with Jesus, and he turned and addressed them. If anyone comes to me without hating his father and mother, wife and children, brothers and sisters, and even his own life, he cannot be my disciple. Whoever does not carry his own cross and come after me cannot be my disciple. Which of you, wishing to construct a tower, does not first sit down and calculate the cost to see if there is enough for its completion? Otherwise, after laying the foundation and finding himself unable to finish the work, the onlookers should laugh at him and say, "This one began to build, but did not have the resources to finish." Or what king marching into battle would not first sit down and decide whether, with 10,000 troops, he can successfully oppose another king advancing on him with 20,000 troops? But if not, while he is still far away, he will send a delegation to ask for peace terms. In the same way, any of you who does not renounce all his possessions cannot be my disciple. The Gospel of the Lord.
Good morning. I'm Father Brown. I'm friends with Father Cullen, Monsignor Cullen. That's how I wound up here. I checked on him. He's retired now, as you know. I went down to check on him. He's doing all right. He doesn't seem to have his bearings yet on exactly what to do with himself. But I can tell you, I went down there, and I walk in the house, and it looked like a bomb hit it. He was sitting there, no shave. He didn't shave. Hadn't shaved for weeks. Empty wine bottles and pizza boxes everywhere. And I go, well, you know, when I get to St. Catharine's, I'm going to tell them what you look like when you're retired. And he said, don't you sully my good name. And he said, all that stuff you saw in the kitchen, that's all Father Martin O'Reilly's. So he's doing fine, though, and he says hello. And when they call me and they asked me to say Mass here, and I said, you know what, maybe next time they call me, I'll say, why don't you call Harry? And so you might see him again. You might wind up seeing him again. He's enjoying his retirement, though. Anyway, to the Gospel. So I was looking at the Gospel, and the first thing that kind of struck me is, Jesus says, you should hate your father, your mother, your sister, your brother. Like, that's how it starts off, right? So obviously he doesn't mean that. But you know what was interesting? The one thing that doesn't show up there doesn't say you should hate your husband. It's like, hey, I hate my kids, I hate my wife, right? But it doesn't say husband. You know why? They don't do anything wrong. They're perfect. They're basically perfect. Why would anybody say that about a husband, right? They're like the anchor, the best thing ever, right? How could you knock a husband? Even Jesus can't knock a husband, right? So that kind of struck me as exciting. We could talk about that maybe after Mass, so that was kind of exciting. But basically what he's saying is, like, you have to have me as the center of your life. You have to love me more than anything else. Because if you don't, you're going to make an idol of it, and everything's going to be out of whack. Okay? If Jesus is your center of your life, everything will be in tune. But when you put something else on the pedestal and God isn't the most important thing, everything kind of falls out of whack, And the other thing I noticed is that Jesus better be God, or else a lot of the things he said sound crazy. And C.S. Lewis picked up on this. He said, either Jesus is who he says he is, or he's crazy. He can't be like one other religious teacher among many, right? Because look at the things he says. He said, look, love me more than your own family. Like, imagine Father Brown got up there and I'm like, look, I know you love your family, but I'm amazing. Like, love me more than you love your own family, right? Like, it sounds crazy, right? And then, what else does he say? He says, eat my body, drink my blood, and carry a cross. So if you're trying to pitch a religion, that's not a good way to start out, you know? Like, what do I need to be a disciple? Well, you got to carry a cross and, love me more than your own family. Like, that's not a good way to start out, right? And the point C.S. Lewis was making is like, either Jesus is who he says he is or he's not. But if he is, if Christ really is who he claims to be, then he really should be the center of our lives. In our lives, we kind of make bets. The cost of discipleship, the homily is about the cost of discipleship, right? And Thursday night poker is kind of like how we approach it, right? For most of us, it's a small ante, right? We go to Mass on Sunday, maybe we get married in church, blah, blah, blah. For most of us, we get a lot more back than we actually give, right? But the gospel talks about, sometimes it does cost us a little. Discipleship's not that expensive. But sometimes it costs us a lot. Like the martyrs thought it was valuable enough to lay down their own lives. That's a pretty high cost. And yet, in today's gospel, even that is worth it. Even laying down one's life is worth it. So what do we receive in return if we make this bet, if we put all our chips in, so to speak? Right? And bet on Christ, that he really is who he says he is, that he really is the Son of God. Our reward is everlasting life, and as we go through this life, we're never alone. Everything we do, including carrying our crosses, is done with Jesus. Everything we do, God is at our side. Everything we do, God helps us. That's the reward of discipleship. And as we come to see Christ for who he truly is, as the Son of God, we realize that even giving up our own lives isn't that bad of a price, because Christ is always worth it.